Hello everyone, welcome to today's class. This is Teacher Simon taking you through AS Pure Mathematics, paper 9709, stroke 13 for October, November 2022, and this is part 1 for questions 1 to 6. Question 1 is coming from trigonometry. Solve the equation 8 sine squared theta plus 6 cos theta plus 1, which is equal to 0 for theta ranging from 0 to 180 degrees. Now, when you look at this one here, we are going to use the Pythagorean identity in trigonometry, which says that sine squared theta plus cos squared theta is equal to 1. Now, since here cos theta is not squared, then I will express sine squared theta in terms of cos squared theta. So this is 1 minus cos squared theta, then plus 6 cos theta plus 1, which is equal to 0. So opening the brackets, we shall have 8 minus 8 cos squared theta plus 6 cos of theta, then plus 1 is equal to 0. I can take everything the other side so that I have the coefficient of cos squared theta as a positive. So we shall have 8 cos squared theta. When this one crosses, it's a positive, so it becomes a minus. So minus 6 cos theta. And then 8 plus 1, that will be a 9. When it crosses, it's a minus, which is equal to 0. Now, this is a quadratic equation in cos theta. So this is a quadratic in cos of theta. So I can solve this using a calculator. Let me check whether it is factorizable. So I will go to mod, then equation is 5, and then 3 is quadratic. I put 8, then minus 6, and then we put minus 9. And then from here we get 3 over 2, and then negative 3 over 4. So I will say cos of theta is equal to negative 3 over 4. Then also cos of theta is equal to 3 out of 2. Now, I've left space here because I need to show the examiner an attempt to solve this quadratic equation. If you just write this, you're going to lose a mark. So give us the factor from which these two roots come, okay? So cross multiply, you will get 4, then cos of theta, then bring the minus 3 here. That one will be now a plus. Okay, so this is the factor that gives us this, okay? Then also here cross multiply, you will get 2 cosine of theta, and then when this one crosses, then you'll get a minus 3 there. You see that? Now, from here, we get the theta from these two values, but we know that cosine of theta, okay, ranges from negative 1 to 1. So this one here is therefore undefined. Okay, so our theta is therefore going to come from here, the arc cos of negative 3 over 4. And since this one is a negative, then cos is negative in the second quadrant and third quadrant. So since they said from 0 to 180, then we just get one value. So our theta here is going to be equal to, you make sure that your calculator is in degrees because the domain given here is in degrees. If you put in radians, you will lose a mark there. So we shall put arc cos of negative 3 out of 4. And that is 138.6. 138.6 degrees. That is to one decimal place. Remember, for angles in degrees, we write them to one decimal place unless otherwise, okay? So that is that. Question 2, the function f is defined by this one here for x less than negative 3. But I express f of x in the form of this one here where a and b are integers. Of course, this is completing squares, but we can do it in two ways. As I have always shown, you can choose the one that is easier for you. So negative 2x squared minus 8x, then minus 13. So the first thing we do is to make sure that the coefficient of x squared is a 1. So since here it is a negative 2, then we factorize out that negative 2 here. And then we have x squared here, and then here we shall have plus 4x, okay? Then I can leave this 13 here because I only need this terms that have got an x in them. Okay, remember I factorized out a -2. This shouldn't change the meaning we have here. Okay, so when you multiply out the brackets, a negative times this positive, then you get back the negative, right? Okay, now next, I've always said that suppose you have x plus b then squared. To expand this one, you're going to have x squared then plus 2bx then plus b squared. And then I only need these two terms that have got an x, so that means this one I'll put it this side, and then we shall have x plus b squared then minus b squared. This one will be equal to x squared plus 2bx. Now you can see that the coefficient of x is 2b, but then when you divide it by 2, you get the b. Now that b is the one you're seeing here and also here. So meaning, get the coefficient of x here, divide it by 2. Okay, so when you divide it by 2, you put it together with the x here in brackets and you square, then you pop it out here as a square. You see that? Then there is minus 13 outside here. Now you open the brackets. So here we shall have -2, then multiplying with x plus 2 here, squared. This is -4, because the square is only on the 2. Here we shall always have a minus, okay? Now, -2 times -4, you will get +8, but then there is a minus 13 here. So that means altogether we shall get -2 into x plus 2 squared, and then 8 minus 13, that one gives you -5. So that means our answer is this one here. Okay, so they said where a and b are integers, they can be positive or negative whole numbers. So just because you're seeing here a plus, it doesn't necessarily mean that you should get a positive here. You see that? Okay, then alternatively, you can expand brackets and then you equate coefficients. Okay, so this one here, I would say, is the same as -2, then x plus a squared, then plus b. So we open brackets on the right hand side, we shall get -2, then inside here we have x squared plus 2ax plus a squared, then we have a b here, and then again we continue to open these brackets, so multiply all through by -2, you'll get -2x squared, then minus 4ax minus 2a squared, then plus b. So coefficient of x squared, you can see it is -2, even here it is -2. Then we go to the coefficient of x, here it is -8, and then here it is -4a. So I would say -8 is equal to -4a. Then when you divide all through by -4, that means a is going to be equal to 2, not so? So don't you see that here we're having a 2? So that is that. Then we get the constant part here, which is -13. Then we shall equate it to, this is the constant term without the x. So that is -2. And then we have a is 2, then squared, and then plus the b. So this is -13. Then this one will give us -8. So when it crosses, it's a plus. You see? Then b becomes -5. And then this simply implies that this one here, our expression, okay, is the same as, then I can just bring this one here, and that is that. So either way, you get the answer, okay? Choose the method that is simpler for you. Part B, find a range of f. Now, our f of x here is equal to -2, then x plus 2 squared, and then minus what? 5. So this one is an n-shaped what? curve, since the coefficient of x squared is a negative, okay, then the turning point we are going to have here is going to be -2. You just get this one here, the squared part, you equate it to 0, you get the value of x there. Then when you put it there, of course, this whole thing will go. This will be the value of y. So value of y is going to be -5. You see that? Okay. Now that means -5 is the maximum value of this function. Okay. The rest of the values are below. You can see if you draw these ones, they are all below this -5. Now, after this one here, the turning point is this way. Now, for this function to have an inverse, because I can see even in part C, they are saying we find the inverse of this function, the function has to be 1 to 1. Okay. Now, this one is many to 1 because I can have 2x values, okay, 2x values that give the same y value. You see that? Now, what we have to do is to choose one side of the turning point. We can either choose the left side or the right side. You see that? So now, based on what we are given here, the domain is x is less than -3. So -3 is going to be somewhere here. So it is on the left. So we need to get the value of y when x is equal to -3. Okay. Then from there, remember, we are looking at the left side of that. That means the value we get here, and then the rest of these ones, which are going to be below that what value. You see that? So let's get f of -3. This one is going to be -2, then into -3 plus 2, and then squared -5. What does this one give us? This one will be -1, then squared, it becomes a positive. Now you have -2 minus 5, that will be -7. So meaning the range of f is going to be f of x. Remember, range is given in terms of the function, and then the domain is given in terms of the independent variable. For this case, it is x. So this one is going to be less than -7. I'm not going to put or equal because this x, they said it is less than -3. So meaning -3 is not inclusive. But if it were x less than or equal, then I would also put here or equal. I've just used this value then to get the value of y that corresponds to that value. You see that? Okay, so our range is therefore f of x, which is less than -7. Part C, find an expression for the inverse of the function. Now, when you are given a quadratic function, okay, there is no way you can find the inverse of a function unless you express that function in the completed square format, like what we are told to do here. Okay, so if a question comes and then they want the expression for the inverse of the function, when they haven't told you to first express it in the completed square format, first do that. Okay, so suppose my inverse of this function is equal to y. I can take the f this other side, and then we have x is equal to f of y. That is the same thing as saying interchanging x and y. So since this one is our f, then wherever there is x, I'm going to put y. So we have y, then plus 2 squared, then -5. Now the next thing to do is to make y the subject of the formula. Okay, so bring this one this side. In fact, let me first take this one here, this side, because I can see it's a negative here. So when I make it cross the equal signs, then it is going to be a positive. You see that? Then which is equal to this x here will go this side, and it will be a minus. Then it will find also the -5. Then we divide all through by 2. So we shall have -x minus 5 out of 2. And then from there, we are going to take the square root. So this will be y plus 2, which is equal to plus or minus. Remember, wherever you take the square root, you have to put plus or minus. Okay. Okay, then after that, our y will be equal to -2, then plus or minus. the square root of minus x minus 5, then out of 2. So this simply means that our F inverse is going to be equal to negative 2. I'll first skip space here. Then I have negative x minus 5, then out of 2. Now, since our x, which is taken into account, is a negative, so if we put, let's say, negative what, 5, so this one will be a positive, and then minus 5, that one becomes a 0. So it makes sense, because we know that when you take the square root of a negative, you don't get the real values. You see that? So don't think that this one is wrong because you're seeing a negative and a negative. Remember, x is in the negative values. You see? Now, we are supposed to choose a sign, plus or minus, okay? But when you put this plus or minus here, your answer is going to be wrong, okay? Because we know that a function has gotten an inverse if at all it is 1 to 1. And when you put plus or minus, it is no longer 1 to 1. You see that? But what do? Just go back and you look at the domain given for the function. If it is on the left, okay, if it is less than, it is on the left of the turning point. They have used less than, then you pick the negative sign. So that means here I will have a negative, you see? But if they have used greater than, or we are looking at the right side of the turning point, then you will use the plus sign, okay? We are going to, let me prove this one for you. Suppose, since we are using x less than negative 3, suppose we use x which is equal to what? 4, negative 4, right? What will be f of negative 4? So we substitute f of negative 4. We can have negative 2 into negative 4 plus 2 squared, then minus what? 5. You see that? Which value do we get here? This one gives us a negative 2 squared, that is a 4, then 4 times negative 2, that will be negative 8 minus 5, that one will give us a negative what? 13. You see that? Now, what else? Now, let's go to the inverse. Remember that the domain of the inverse is the range of f, okay? So we are going now to put this value here in the inverse. When we put this one in the inverse, do we get back the negative form? So I substitute in here, this is negative 2, I'll leave space here, okay? Negative, then of negative 13, then minus 5, then out of 2. So what do we get here? This is negative 2. This will be positive 13, then minus 5. What do you get? Isn't that 8? 8 divided by 2, that is a 4. And then root of the 4, you get a 2. Now, how do I get the negative 4 here? Do I put a plus? When I put a plus, it becomes a what? It becomes a 0. But when I put a minus, it becomes the negative 4. So do you see that this sign in negative, it is the one that we are supposed to have here? But you don't need to do all of this to waste time in the exam. All you need to do is to look at the side of the turning point they are considering in the question here in the domain. If it is less than, choose the minus sign. If it is greater than, choose the plus sign. So that is that. Question 3 is coming from binomial expansions part A. Find the first 3 terms in the ascending powers of x of this expansion here. Now we know for binomial expansion, this is a plus b to the power of n. So we say n combination 0, then a power n, then b power 0. Remember, whatever is here as the power of the b is the one that goes into the combination here. So we have n combination 1, and then a to the power of n minus 1. So the powers of a keep on reducing as the powers of b keep on what? Increasing. So we have n, then combination 2, then this is a, n minus 2 here, then b power 2, and then this one continues until we get only b to the power of 1, n. Now let us look at this one here. we have 1, then plus 2x to the power of 5. Now we shall have n is 5, then combination 0. Our a is 1, so you power it with the 5. And then our b is 2x, so power 0. Then 5, 1 here, then 1 here, power 4. And then 2x has to be power 1. And then they said first 3. So lastly we have 5, then combination 2, 1 then to the power of 3, and then 2x to the power of 2. Another thing you need to know is that whenever you get the powers and you add them, okay, the pair of these powers, you are supposed to be getting the n which is given. So 4150, it is all giving us what? The 5. And all of these ones are giving us the what? The n. So that one has to be put into consideration. 5 combination 0 is a 0. I mean is a 1. Then 1 power 5, of course that is a 1. So here we are getting a 1. And then here we have 5 times 1, then times 2x. And then 5 combination 2 is 5 times 4, which is 20 divided by 2, that will be 10. Then 1 cubed is 1. And then 2 squared will be a 4. And then with x squared, there are many other terms that are coming forth. So meaning our whole answer is going to be 1 plus, then 10x, and then plus 40x squared. And that is that. Then part B, find the first 3 terms in ascending powers of x in the expansion of this one here. So I'm going to do the same thing here, okay? We have 1 minus 3x, then power 4. So this will be 4 combination 0, and then 1 to the power of 4, then minus 3x to the power of 0. Please take this sign together with this term. If you don't, you'll get wrong things. Then plus, we have 4 combination 1, then we have 1 to the power of 3, then negative 3, x to the power of 1, then 4 combination 2, then we have 1 to the power of 2, and then negative 3, x to the power of 2. And these ones are still continuing, but they just want me to find the first 3 terms, okay? Then what do we do next? We simplify. This one will give us a 1, then plus 4 combination 1 is a 4, of course, times 1, then times negative 3 of x, and then plus 4 combination 2, that is 4 times 3, that is 12 divided by 2, 6, then times 1, and then times negative 3 squared, that will be a 9, then x squared. So altogether, this one will give me 1, then minus 12x, and then 6 times 9 is at that 54, because 9 times 5 is 45, so plus 9, you get 54, then x squared. So that is what we are having there. Then part C, hence find the coefficient of x squared in this expansion here. So 1 plus 2x to the power of 5, then times 1 minus 3x to the power of 4. So we got the expansion of the first one here, which is 1 plus 10x. So we shall have 1 plus 10x, then plus 40x squared, and the rest of the other terms. Then this other one is 1 minus 2, I think it is 12x, then plus 54x squared, like that. Now, we are not going to expand each and everything here, because whatever is in the first bracket is supposed to multiply with whatever is in the second bracket. But we are only interested in the terms that are going to multiply out such that they end in x what? Squared. You see that? So that means this one here will multiply with 54. You see that? Then we have 10x here will multiply with negative 12x. You see that? Then lastly, we have 40x squared will multiply with this one here. Okay, so I will say here that term in x squared is going to be 1, then times 54 x squared. Then we have 10x. It will multiply with this negative 12x. And then 40x squared. 40x squared will multiply with 1. Okay, so that means here I'll get 54, then minus 120 here, and then here there is 40, like that. And then everything here will end in what? X squared. And then what do we have here? This is 54. 54 plus 40, that will be 94. So 120. If I subtract 94, so you need 6 to go to 100. Then also plus the 20, that one will give us 26. So this one will be negative 26 x squared. And then you conclude. You don't say x squared is equal to negative 26, because I'm seeing this mistake done by many students. You just say, you conclude they asked for the coefficient. So you write that word there, coefficient. Coefficient of x squared is equal to negative 26. Don't also write this term. Don't just stop here. They didn't ask for the term in x squared. They asked for the coefficient. You see that? Question 4. A large industrial water tank is such that when the depth of the water in the tank is x meters, the volume v meters cubed of the water in the tank is given by this expression. Water is being pumped into the tank at a constant rate of 3.6 meters cubed per hour. Find the rate of increase of the depth of the water when the depth is 4 meters, giving your answer in centimeters per minute. Now, we are given dvdt because they said the rate, it is pumped in at a constant rate of this, and you can see that these are cubic units then per hour. So we are going to have dv dt, it is given as 3.6. This one is coming from differentiation, and particularly in connected rates of change. So we have v, which is equal to 243 minus a third, then 9 minus x, then to the power of 3 here. We need to get dv dx. Okay, the depth of the water in the tank is x meters. They are talking about the depth. Okay, so dv dx here is going to be, of course, this one will go. Then here you remain with this a third here. Now times, drop the power here. When we drop, that is a 3 here. Then 9 minus x, reduce the power by 1, so you get a 2. Then times the derivative of what is inside here, because here we are using chain rule, so it's a negative 1. Now this one goes, but then a negative times a negative, that one gives us a positive, right? So meaning that dv dx is going to be equal to 9 minus x, then what? Squared. So we are given a value of x here being equal to 4. So for x is equal to 4, what is dv dx? So dv dx will be equal to 9 minus 4, okay, squared. Isn't this 25? Because 9 minus 4 is 5. Then 5 squared becomes what? 25. Now they want us to find the rate of increase in the depth. So that is dx dt. So dx dt is going to be equal to dx. I can put the dt here, but x is connected to v. So we have dx dv, then times dv dt. You see that? dv dt, such that this dv can go away, and then you remain with the dx dt. So here we are using chain one rule. Now this dx dv is actually equal to 1 over dv dx. You see that? So what is dx dv? Remember, the v dx is this one here. So dx dv is going to be 1 out of 25. Then times what is dv dt? It is given as this. So we shall have 3.6. And then everything simplified, what do we have? 3.6 divided by 25. That one gives us 0.144. And this will be meters per. This one here is meters, okay, because we dealt with x in meters. So that is meters per, because time is given in what? In hours here, you see, because the volume here was given in, the rate in volume was per hour. So that means here we are going to have per hour. Okay, now we have to convert this one to centimeters per minute. So how many centimeters are in a meter? They are 100, not so? So times 100. Then per, it is hour, so that is 1 hour. Then that 1 hour, convert it to a minute. In an hour we have 60 minutes. So now what is the simplified one here? So the answer I have here, I will multiply it, okay, by 100, and then I divide it by 60. So that is 6 out of 25, which is 0.24. 0.24. Then this one will be in centimeters per minute. So that is that. Question 5 is coming from transformations of functions. The diagram shows a curve which has the maximum point 812 and the minimum point 80. The curve is the result of applying a combination of two transformations to the circle. The first transformation applied is the translation of 7 minus 3. And then the second transformation applied is a stretch in the y direction. Part A, state the scale factor of the stretch. Now, when you look at this diagram here, they give us the maximum and the minimum. Okay, so I can begin by finding the center of this circle. So the center here is going to be, you get the x coordinate by saying 8. What is the x coordinate here? This is 80, then this is 812, not so? So we are going to have, of course, 8 plus 8, then divide by 2, and then 12 plus 0 divide by 2. What does this one give us? 8, and then what? 6. So this is the one here, okay? That is the center. Now, this one was a circle, okay? Maybe it was somewhere, and then it was moved to the right, and then also down, because we can see something like this here. 7, that means you move to the right, and then -3, you move down. Then after they stretched, so if the stretching was done parallel to y-axis, that means there is no stretch in the horizontal, okay? So that means the radius has to be this 1 unit here. So this is our center here first, and this one here is 80. So the radius has to be this 1 unit. You see that? But then here we see that it was, even this one is 1 unit, but you can see from here to the circumference here, you are having, this is 1, 2, 3. That means it was stretched by 3 what? Units. So meaning that the stretch factor here, stretch factor has to be equal to 3, okay? Because right from here, when you look at this one here, it is 1 unit, and there was no stretch in the x direction. So that means we could have a circle, maybe that was like this. Actually, these are 2 units here, okay? Pardon me, I had said 1 unit. These are 2 units here, because you can see 8 to 10, and even here 6 to 8. So those are 2 units. That means the radius of the original one Okay, remember it was moved by this translation. So the radius here has to be 2 units. Part B, they are saying state the radius of the original circle. That is exactly what I have just said. So radius of original circle, radius of original circle is equal to 2. But C, state the coordinates of the center of the circle after the translation has been completed but before the stretch is applied. Now we have seen here that the center here after the stretch is what? 8, 6. Now this 8, 6 here, 8, 6 corresponds to 8, but this y coordinate, remember, the 6 came after they had stretched by factor 3. That means here we are having 3y. You see that? But when we actually stretch in the y, the x coordinate remains the same, okay? Because that is vertical stretch. So if the x coordinate remains the same, it is only the y coordinate that is changing. You see that? So what was the y coordinate before the stretching here? Okay, so we are going to divide through. So y coordinate before stretching. This one is equal to 6y, the 6 we are having here. Okay, so we have 3, I will say 6 divided by 3, not so. In other words, you have 3y, which is equal to 6, not so. So, how did I write a 0 here? Oh my God. Pardon me here. So, 3y is equal to the 6 that we are seeing here. So, meaning the y coordinate before the stretching is a 2. So, that means the center of the circle before the stretching is 8 what? 2. Then part D, state the coordinates of the center of the original circle. Now there was a translation done. Okay, so we had an x coordinate here and we had a y coordinate. Okay, in fact, let me write it like this using vectors, because you know that if you get the object then plus the translation, the object plus the translation, then you get the image. So the coordinates of the original one, so it is xy, so I'll write it as the column vector. Then the translation is 7, -3, not so. Then the image is now this 8, 2. So how do I get x? Okay, xy. This xy is going to be, take this on this side. So you have 8 minus 7 and then 2 minus 3. Not so. So this one will give us a 1 and then 5. So that means the coordinates of the original, okay, the coordinates of the center of the original circle, then it is going to be 1, then what? 5. You don't leave it as a column vector. So that is what we are having there. So this is our answer here. Question 6, it is given that alpha is equal to the arc cos of 8/17. Find, without using trigonometric functions on your calculator, the exact value of 1/sin alpha, and then 1 plus 1/tan alpha. Now I can take the cosine this side, and then I will have cosine of alpha, which is equal to 8/17. You see that? Then after that, we can see that actually cosine here is positive. Now, when we draw our 4 quadrants, okay, we know that cos is positive in the first quadrant and fourth what? Quadrant. You see that? Then we can have a 0 here, then this is 90, then 180, then 270, then 360. Now, of course, here we have S and then T. Now, I'm going to draw a triangle in the what? Either in the first quadrant or the fourth quadrant, okay? But I'm going to use the first quadrant here. So I'll draw this one here. In fact, before that, let me take away this A here. Then this one here, then here. Cos, this is the alpha. Cos is adjacent out of hypotenuse. So we are using SOHCAHTOA. Now we need to get this opposite here, okay? So the opposite here, why do I have to write the whole thing? The opposite is going to be equal to, using Pythagoras theorem, so we shall have 17 squared, then minus 8 squared. What does this one give us? Square root of 17 squared, then minus 8 squared. That is 15. So we get 15. So this simply implies that sine of alpha, remember we are using what? SOHCAHTOA. So if we are having a right angle triangle, then we can use the Pythagoras theorem and then the SOHCAHTOA. So using this acronym here, it helps us to find the trigonometric ratios. So sine of alpha is equal to the opposite out of what? Hypotenuse. So what is our opposite? We have gotten it here. 15 out of hypotenuse is the 17. So we divide by 17. And then tan of alpha would be equal to the opposite, because that is the tall, then out of adjacent. And then what is our opposite? The opposite is this 15 we have gotten, and then adjacent is the 8. Then we are going to have 1 over sine of alpha, then plus 1 over tan of alpha. This one will be 1 over this, you just get the reciprocal of this one here. So it will be 17 out of 15, then plus 1 over tan alpha, we shall get the reciprocal of this one, that is 8 out of 15. Now, 17 plus 15, what does this one give us? Is that a 25? So 25 out of 15. If I divide all through by 5, I'll get a 5. Then down here, I'll get a 3. So that is that. Okay. However, by the way, here they said that without using the trigonometric functions on your calculator, what do they mean? Don't say the arc cosine of this one, you get the angle with those decimals here, and then you also come here and you say 1 over sine of the answer, then plus whatever. No, they needed something like this. Get for us the opposite, and then from there you get the sine by using the opposite over the hypotenuse, then tan, you get the opposite over the adjacent, and then you just use the fractions here to get this. Then alternatively, because they never specified whether angle alpha was acute or reflex, and we know that cosine is positive in the fourth quadrant. Okay, so if cosine is positive in the fourth quadrant, now this is my alternative approach. Alternatively, we are going now to draw this circle here, but the triangle will be drawn in the fourth what? Quadrant here. So this is our alpha, and then we are having opposite. Opposite is what? Opposite is 8. I mean cos is adjacent over hypotenuse. So adjacent is 8. Then hypotenuse here is what? 17. And we have seen that the opposite is 15. So meaning in the fourth quadrant, we know that sine is a negative. So sine alpha, we shall put negative 15 opposite out of hypotenuse out of 17. And then tan alpha shall be equal to it is also negative in the fourth quadrant. It is only cosine, which is positive. So meaning 1 over sine alpha, then plus 1 over tan alpha, then this one will be equal to negative 17 over 15, and then this one is minus 8 over 15. So meaning you'll have negative 25 over 15, and then it becomes negative 5 over 3. So even this one will be marked right because they never specified, okay, whether alpha was obtuse, whether it was acute, obtuse, or reflex. So, and we know that since this one is positive, it is positive in the first quadrant and also in the fourth quadrant. If you consider the first quadrant, then that means that sine and tan are going to be positive values. If you consider the fourth quadrant, then sine and tan are going to be negative values. You see that? Okay. So this has been it for this first part of the paper. Thank you so much for watching. May God bless you. If you find the content very helpful, kindly like, share, and even subscribe. See you in the next videos.